I love that you say that every single time.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, this is me, the non-technical person. Now it's 100% for sure that we're
Great.
live.
And we're going to have the ones commenting like, yes, Scotty John, you are live. We hear you and we see you.
So Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute and mute
Okay.
myself real quick.
All right. So if you've been watching us, we start our conversations with one of these questions. So let's see what we get today. Tell the person to the left why you are grateful for them. So would that be you or my other left?
I suppose it's me. I think you have to do it. Sorry.
Okay. So I am grateful for your amazing hair. No, but in all seriousness, I am grateful for our friendship, Scotty. So I don't know if many of you guys know, but we met at Tech Systems. So that was quite a while ago. And we have remained friends, colleagues, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, likewise. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm probably not supposed to say the same thing that you say. I would say this is what I would say, that I'm grateful about you specifically, aside from our friendship, is we disagree on stuff. And I love that. That's a huge reason why. I just want to welcome anybody who's watching, and I'm not monitoring that at this exact moment, but I want to welcome anybody who's watching us right now live on both LinkedIn and YouTube. Turns out.
That's awesome. You got it.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, and we're starting out per usual with these cards that Kelly has. But yeah, I'm grateful for the fact that like, I shouldn't say constantly, but oftentimes we disagree, and I learn a lot from you, right? Like, obviously, you're never going to learn from people that just agree with you all the time. So I'm grateful for that, and thanks again for coming on a bi-weekly basis. We're now, for the working title is Live with Scotty and Kelly.
Nice.
Here on LinkedIn, as well as, if you prefer, you can watch us right now on YouTube. So feel free to jump over there. And we have a couple of great topics today, but of course, per usual, feel free to drop your questions into the comment section or your comments. We're going to start today with a hot topic here on LinkedIn, which is ghosting. Why do candidates get ghosted? In particular by recruiters, but also hiring managers. So I'm going to really quick, just, again, from a technical standpoint, I'm still a novice. I'm going to put myself on mute one more time, make sure I figure this, make sure I'm 100% set up, and then we'll go from there. So 1 second, Kelly.
Okay. Should I ask another question, or should I just continue to say what else I'm grateful for about Scotty?
Yeah, please don't do please don't do the latter. I think I'm already blushing.
You are.
So okay, cool. Again, welcome for those of you watching us live on LinkedIn. It's Live with Scotty and Kelly. That's our working title. This is an Ask Me Anything format. So any questions that you have, we are here for that first and foremost. But oftentimes we don't get questions right away. So we actually have a topic scheduled to go, and it's a relatively controversial one. So what we're talking about today is why candidates get ghosted. And there are 3 scenarios that we're going to focus on. Number 1 is, at the application part of the process. So why you apply and never hear back. Number 2 is after an interview, or maybe 2, like meeting with the recruiter, or maybe the initial meeting with the hiring manager. And then number 3 is after you've completed the process, you've been told that you went to the final interview stage, and then you get ghosted after that. So those are just 3 scenarios. We're going to talk about all 3, and we're going to try to kind of peel back the curtain here a little bit, and not to justify it by any means, but just to explain a little bit about why this might happen. So starting with that first scenario that I mentioned, Kelly, why do people get ghosted when they apply to a job?
Yeah, so we've all been there. And to what Scotty's saying, we're just definitely trying to give you a little bit more scope and insight about recruiters' life. So you have multiple positions you're working on. And some of those positions you get a lot of applicants, some of them you don't. So a lot of it is just recruiters are being overworked right now in the moment. So we talked about it, I think, in our second meeting, that job postings right now, they're like double, triple the amount that they were last year. So yes, recruiters are super, super busy. And unfortunately, maybe they just didn't get to your resume. Or again, it's one position, 500 applicants. Ugh, as much as I would love to go through all of them, they probably haven't done it. Anything else you want to add? Did I lose you?
Did I freeze?
You did freeze for a second.
I really hope that I didn't have a totally stupid look on my face.
Didn't actually. That's why I had to like look at it for a second. And I'm like, I think you might be frozen. It was like a very perfect Scotty pose.
Oh, I lost you there, and hopefully we didn't lose our live streaming here, but not sure what's going on. I actually want to say there may be some thunder in the background here. I've got a pretty big storm, so I'm not sure if it's an internet issue that I'm going to have because of weather, or if it was just that's a first for this. But
Maybe it was a ghost.
What's that?
Maybe it was a ghost. We're talking about ghosting.
Yeah. And I heard what you were talking about with regard to overworked recruiters, right? And just the fact that
Yes.
Right now, especially, there's I'm in the IT recruiting space, and there are probably more postings for IT right now than there are for recruiters. But I think recruiting and talent acquisition postings are a close second in terms of demand. So that, like you mentioned, Kelly, it's just an indication that recruiters are overworked. And I don't want to, go over anything that you already covered here, but that leads to people working on, 20, 30, 40 recs or requisitions or jobs
Yes.
at a given time. And it's very difficult if you've got that much of a workload to respond to every application as much as we always try.
Yep.
So real quick, Kelly, I just want to check in, make sure we're still live, and that anybody who's watching us here knows that this is an Ask Me Anything, and they can, any comments or questions they have, they can go ahead and pop them into the comments section. Give me a split second here. I'm going to just confirm we are in fact still live.
I see it on my end, Scotty, that that it's live streaming. So
okay, good. All right, cool. So moving on to our second scenario around ghosting. So this one is, I'd say, probably the second most frustrating for a given candidate. And that is after you've done either a phone screen with the recruiter, or perhaps a phone screen and, with the recruiter and the hiring manager. So one or two interviews in, it's still early days, early stages, but why do people get ghosted at this stage?
I'll let you take this one since I took the first one.
Sure, that's great. So first and foremost, like I said at the top here, this is by no means a justification, right? I just think that, again, we're trying to give an indication as to why this stuff may happen, but it's not to excuse it from happening. There's a couple of things I want to say about this. So number one, a lot of times you don't get ghosted at this stage, but you do get like either a canned email or a relatively brief email without a lot of information or feedback. And once again, just to kind of, go back behind the curtain and share why that might happen. At this stage, there may be 10, 15, 20 people that go through this part of the process. Again, not to try to justify it, but if you think about a recruiter working on 40 positions and trying to do initial interviews with 20 candidates each, it just gets very challenging from a time standpoint to get back to the people that were early in the process, right? So with that in mind, if they had planned to send an email and, frankly forgot, or, you know what I mean? Like there's in our systems, our applicant tracking systems, sometimes what happens is somebody moves to a different part of the software and the email goes out to everybody in another stage in the software. And that one person isn't in that stage, so that email doesn't make it to them. Anything else that you would add to why this happens at this stage in the process, Kelly?
No, I think you've covered it actually really well. It's either a system error, it could be a recruiter error, just prioritizing items. So that's all I would add. So should we go to the next section?
Yeah,
3?
sorry, I'm still just trying to make sure that that I'm monitoring.
I got you. Okay.
I feel like I have a feeling here that there may be some comments coming through, but because the stream got paused, we are not seeing comments. So
can I look on it on my end, or is it just you? Because
yeah, if you want to take a look, just make sure you mute yourself, or else we'll get a bunch of feedback that's no fun for the audience.
Okay.
But in the meantime, while you're working on that, Kelly, so I do want to talk about the third scenario that we mentioned at the top. So for anybody watching, again, welcome live with Scotty and Kelly here on LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. We've got, I think I've gotten that figured out today. This is, again, an Ask Me Anything format. So opportunity to ask two seasoned recruiters any questions that you have about anything we do. We are talking right now about why people get ghosted. And I want to go to the third scenario here, which is after you've gone through the entire interview process. So, going from an applicant is what we started with. Once you apply, if you never hear back, that's one scenario. Second scenario is early in the interview process. This is hands down the most frustrating and I think the least justifiable time to get ghosted. And again, we are not justifying this, but I'm just trying to explain why it might happen. And here in a minute, we'll talk about what you can do about it as a candidate. So third scenario, you've gone through the whole process. You've been told it's a final interview. You never hear back, right? This does happen. Kelly, again, I can take it if you want to, if you don't want to make it feel like you're justifying this, but why might it happen? And again, I'm happy to take it.
Well, I'm not trying to justify it either.
Yeah.
But what comes to mind, and again, we've talked about it, is just a lot is on the recruiter's plate. And so they're trying to follow up with the hiring leader to get feedback, or the team. So yes, interview is done, it's complete, but then there's a little window right there where the recruiter needs to get feedback. Are we moving forward? Are we making an offer? And so just a lot of outreach to them. And then sometimes we don't hear back. And on the recruiter side, that's really frustrating because, again, we want to make sure that we're communicating a message to the candidate. And we like to have something. Me personally, I've gotten better at it, but I hate being like, I don't have anything for you, but I'm getting it. I'll check up with you. And it's that middle, like, I don't have anything. So for me, I really try to have at least some content or some facts like, hey, this is why we're not moving forward, or this is what happened, like what is that information. And so that's what they're trying to gather at that point too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, right? It's, if and when this happens, go through the entire process. Typically what it is the hiring team, the hiring manager, or even frankly the executives that are that hiring leader reports to are trying to determine maybe something's changed, or you know what I mean? Like there's other priorities internally on that particular team. There's a number of reasons why it may slow down the process. I've certainly heard anecdotally people receive offers 2-3 months after their final interview and they hadn't heard anything up to that point. And again, that's typically pretty off-putting.
Yeah,
but it happens. And again, this is kind of why. So so we both have our ideas about how to address this stuff internally. Probably not the right forum to share, but for candidates, what do you think? I mean, I think it might be obvious, but what do you think are the best action items you can take to avoid being ghosted?
follow up, absolutely. Like send a quick message to the recruiter. And I would hope that you have the relationship and have built the rapport with that recruiter. If you've made it to the final interview, you've had at least connected with them, 3 or 4 times, depending on how many rounds. But if you haven't heard from them, send them a message, and again, be patient. I know I struggle with it. But if you haven't heard from them, within a couple of days of your interview, I would even say like up to the end of the week, send them a quick message. And if not, follow up on Monday again, like, hey, just checking in. It's okay to be persistent. And really that helps the recruiter be top of mind, because we do that on our end. We're sending up follow-up emails to candidates, to hiring manager, everyone that we're working with. So if you're able to do that as a candidate, especially if you're super interested in the position and you want it, you're standing out compared to the other candidates that could be finalists. You're doing that one little thing to show, hey, I'm taking initiative, I'm interested. And again, like we said, this is supposed to be on us why we're ghosting, but any help that you can assist, definitely, I look for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think so. Just for me, number one, I've mentioned it a couple of times here in the stream, but we're neither of us are justifying this. In fact, it's something that we kind of think is unexcusable, I think. But again, there's reasons why it might happen, especially earlier in the process, like we talked about. And to your point, I think the one thing that I would say, the framework in the frame of mind that you need to take as a candidate, because sometimes recruiters, again, we're just so busy, you'll call or you'll email, and what you get back is a short or perhaps even like annoyed sounding response. And I just want you to recognize that, generally speaking, the people in our seat are well intentioned, well meaning, and even if it comes across that it's annoying, it's not. It's actually super helpful. It's just that we're typically pretty slammed. So that's one thing I think from a frame of mind standpoint that you want to kind of try to keep top of mind when you are following up. But to your point, Kelly, that's it, right? It's just follow up. I mean, it's inexcusable.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen. And so candidates, I mean, you shouldn't allow it to happen, right? And last thing I'll say is, if you do follow up with a recruiter or hiring manager that you've got contact information from, and they don't ever respond, I think that's a sign of, there are not all recruiters are created equal, right? So
Yeah.
that's probably a sign that, hey, that's a place you want to avoid. So
yeah, I agree with that statement.
Awesome. So technical difficulties notwithstanding, thank you to everyone who has joined the live feed here on LinkedIn. Kelly, I never introduced you formally. So this is Kelly Sanchez. She's my bi-weekly.
I take my grateful comment back.
Yeah. She's my bi-weekly conversation partner. This is our working title is Live with Scotty and Kelly here on LinkedIn and YouTube for the first time ever. And what this is it's an Ask Me Anything format. So any questions that you have for two experienced recruiters, any comments about the things we've been talking about, please feel free to put them in the comment section on this feed. Also, for those of you watching, love some feedback as well as to what you think we can do. There's some things that are just going to be what they are, like me not being technical. But we do have one more topic that we will only get to touch on. It's way too big to to dive into. It would probably take us another hour. But I'm not seeing
about it all day, honestly.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it. I'm not seeing any questions come through. So let me just start here with again a big topic, and that is the holistic approach to recruiting. So what I mean by that is, particularly from a talent acquisition standpoint, an internal recruiting function like the one that Kelly leads, Kelly being the head of talent acquisition for DigiCert. This is super important, and there's a bunch of different topics that kind of are encompassed when I mention holistic recruiting. The three that we may get to touch on, maybe just one, are onboarding your new employee, retaining your current employees, and a team approach to recruiting. When I say a team approach, I mean a team outside of the talent acquisition group. So Kelly, we've got 10 more minutes here. We'll probably only get to one of these. Which of the three do you want to tackle?
I think we can talk about the team approach.
Okay.
Because we can talk about it from it. When I think about it as internal. Yes, you're partnering with the hiring managers from an internal perspective, but then you can open that up to external partners with agencies. Because again, that's another team approach. From that, that's at least how I'm looking at it.
Cool.
From that
Yeah.
angle.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, when you do it, to your point, when you talk about team, we can kind of define what that means. And that's a perfect example. So I'm biased. I am part of an external recruiting firm. So I appreciate you mentioning that off the top. But the other people that are going to be a part of this are the teams that are hiring. So number one, hiring manager, the number one stakeholder besides a recruiter in a hiring process is going to be the leader who's hiring into their team. The other individuals typically are going to be the team members, right? That are going to be on a team with this person. But beyond that, there are stakeholders in an organization that the person will likely work with. I can't think of any exceptions to that rule. And so it's kind of trying to come up with a strategy that includes all of those people, to source meaning find candidates, and also sell, for lack of a better term, the opportunity to people, right? So I think for me, that those are the stakeholders. You mentioned external recruiting partner, which again, I appreciate and I agree with that. Anyone else that I'm not thinking of?
And this is again just getting even to like the second layer would be just your network of people. Who do they know? Not necessarily the hiring manager stakeholders, but they can also be your team. As a recruiter, I think we just do it naturally. It's like, oh, where do you work? Who's that? And you find the connection. So eventually when a position comes open, it's like, oh, hey, my sister's boyfriend is a part of that team, or they are in that industry and I can connect them. So when I talk outside of your just network, kind of the go-to of the hiring manager and the team and the stakeholders, there's another layer of your connections outside as well.
100%. Yeah. So there's two ways to look at it. I think one from the hiring, the team that's hiring's perspective, the other is from the candidate's perspective. So I think from just real quick, from a candidate perspective, the reason that this is important to know is because, pretty much every job these days is going to have a recruiter that's working on it. And I should be more specific, an internal, talent acquisition team member that'll be working on it. So if you can try to identify who that person is, that's big. But beyond that, trying to identify who the hiring manager and the other members of the team for a given posting is also important. You don't want to annoy people. You don't want to send your resume to the hiring manager unsolicited, but it wouldn't hurt to leverage LinkedIn, for instance, and, send an invitation to connect. A lot of the times I think that these things are done better proactively, but when there is a job you're interested in and you've applied to it, I don't think it hurts to try to start networking, so to speak, with the hiring manager and other members of the team. That would be my thought from a candidate's perspective. Anything I'm not thinking through, Kelly, with regard to, how that might come across?
No, I think it's great, especially again, if you really are interested in that company, take that step and reach out to the talent acquisition manager or recruiters or whoever, even the coordinator on that team, because who do they work with? They work with the recruiters and can connect you with them, and they know exactly who the point of contact is. But even from a hiring manager, if you're able to connect the dots and figure out, hey, this is maybe who's supposed to be, I don't think a message hurts at all. It just, again, gives them kind of a heads up, like, hey, this person, hey, if they apply, I recognize this name, and now they're applying. Okay, like they really are interested. This is important to them that they're taking these extra steps to put in that effort. But I guess I would say don't don't try to stalk them too much or something, because maybe that will do the negative effect. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. A lot of the stuff, that we talk about on these LinkedIn lives, taken out of context, it could actually be, it could actually hurt you as a candidate or an applicant. And to your point, that's definitely one of the things. It's like, again, sending a resume unsolicited. Let me just take a minute to this is a separate but related topic in general, right? Whether it's a recruiter or a hiring, who you perceive to be a hiring manager, just anybody that might have, something to do with the process. You're well-intentioned. You just want to express your interest and show them that you're a fit for this job. And that's why you'll send a resume.
Mhm.
That makes sense. But if you take a step back and think about it from their perspective, what you've now done is you've expected them to take an action, not just a small action, reading a resume, right? Which, especially for us as recruiters, was that thunder?
I don't know. That scared me.
So, but again, it's a big action to ask somebody to read your resume, and a hiring manager, especially, they've got a day job. Part of that day job is leading the team. Part of that day job is hiring, to be sure, but they also are probably getting inundated with people who are like, hey, I'm a good fit for this. Here's my resume. Read it. What do you think? It's sending the wrong message. It's starting off on the wrong foot. So to Kelly's point about not wanting to stalk, I would say the same thing about being careful and intentional about how you come across to that individual. Be respectful of their time and just think through like the fact that this is one aspect of their day job, and they trust their talent group to get them qualified people. So it actually sends probably the wrong message than what you're trying to send when you unsolicited send your resume via LinkedIn, for instance. I think, so we could talk a little bit if you want to about the hiring team and so for those of you who are watching, I'm not sure if there's people that have tuned in or if we've got all the same folks from the beginning. First of all, thank you. But this is a live with Scotty and Kelly working title. And we're talking about all things recruiting. So any questions that you have, feel free to pop them into the comment section. But what we're talking about right now is the holistic approach to recruiting, specifically, leveraging as a talent acquisition professional, leveraging the team that actually is hiring. So I think we've just got a few more minutes, Kelly. I think it might be a good place to wrap this up unless you.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this other topic too. I think it would be a good one for the next one. And I don't want to cut it short. So I'm with you.
Yeah, it deserves more space in terms of being able to talk about, how we partner with hiring teams as recruiters, right? So, and also stakeholders aside from just the individuals on a given team. So, well, again, didn't have a ton of participation, but that's okay. It's also possibly my bad for the lack of technical expertise. But thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Once again, please feel free to give us feedback in the comments, ask questions for next time. We're doing this every other week around 11:30, every other Wednesday, I should say, around 11:30. And we just want to keep, adding value and getting better. So thanks again for joining us. And we appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.